Sunday, we're mixing it up, sometimes with the get-together we call Reflections, which features a potluck in someone's home. And sometimes we play board games or watch movies or similar activities, and now and then we've had a blood drive.
Later in the show, we'll give you our websites to visit for additional dates, including times and locations.
All right. I didn't bring anything or work up anything for in the news. Did you have anything you wanted to comment on?
No, not tonight. Why don't we go to the main program?
Yeah, well, our vast audience in the studio suggested that we might want to comment on the ill-advised comments by some of the candidates for president or in the primaries, talking about banning Muslims from entering the United States. And, you know, here on Freethought Forum TV, our principal reason is to criticize, you know, the supernatural belief in religious ideas on their lack of merit. But we certainly have to say that to discriminate on people based on religious ideas is a fundamentally un-American thing.
It certainly is.
And it ties very much related to our topic today, which is the Bill of Rights.
Yes, the freedom of religion, specifically.
Yes. All righty, so I guess let's slip into our main program.
Okay.
I think you get the first words.
I do. Today, December 15th, is the 224th anniversary from 1791 of the ratification of the Bill of Rights. We hope to have an interesting conversation about the Bill of Rights and invite viewers to call in and participate.
I think we should clarify some of the things I know some people become confused about. There are three things that we may mention today: the Declaration of Independence, the Constitution, which is better called the National Constitution, and finally the Bill of Rights.
The Declaration of Independence of July 4th, 1776, by the Continental Congress is a document of divorce, separating the 13 then British colonies from George III, the head of the government and Church of England.
The U.S. Constitution, proposed September 17th, 1787, 11 years after the Declaration of Independence, creates our current national government. Previously, there was a different government operating under the Articles of Confederation, which was much more like a treaty between 13 independent states. It was struggling and failing to be an effective national government. In 1787, representatives of the states met with instructions to revise the Articles of Confederation, but gave up and started from scratch, creating the document proposed to be a new, much stronger national government.
Trivia. The new national government was illegal under the Articles of Confederation. Now, how is that, Faithless?
All right, well, it works like this. The Articles of Confederation were like treaties between separate nations that had equal power. And in the Articles of Confederation, it said that no members could make bilateral agreements with any of the others, and I think maybe even not foreign powers.
Right.
Whereas our current government, our current Constitution, as written, said that when some minimum number, but not unanimity, of the states chose to adopt it, it would become the law for those states. Mm-hmm. So by actually voting to adopt and become part of a new government with this Constitution, the current Constitution, the participating states were violating the Articles of Confederation. Now, there's an important point about this, and that was how the Articles were failing. The Articles of Confederation, because they were, in a sense, treaties between equal nations, had no mechanism for enforcement short of what amounted to international warfare.
Right.
And it is a significant redesign of the nation that was achieved by the current Constitution, because it creates a unified central government with clearly subordinate states.
Right.
They have given up their absolute sovereignty.
Equal and absolute among themselves to become part of a larger organizational structure.
And there's one more thing, and that is that the citizens of the separate states are citizens of the nation and subject to the rules of the nation. So similarly, although there was not an income tax at the time, there were real problems under the Articles of Confederation with revenue. That it was creating a crisis. That's part of what caused the Constitutional Convention, is that there was no way to enforce revenue collection because the only way was to go to war with another independent state. But the national government allowed for taxation of the citizens. Now, initially, that usually meant taxation or import tariffs. Taxation on imports, which are tariffs, and that was the principal means by which the government was initially funded. But they were charged to individuals or businesses who were importing, and so the jurisdiction of the national government included enforcement down to the individual. And now you no longer had to wage international warfare to collect the taxes that the national government needed to pay. There was a big outstanding debt left from the Revolutionary War, and they were welching on their debt. So
none of the independent states wanted to pay for that debt either.
The word freeloading comes to mind. And so by the time the national government, the new Constitution was being created, I think they essentially said, if we can get a sizable group to do this, we're going to go ahead with it. And if there are a few laggards, let them fall behind. So our current government is illegal by the old agreement.
Okay, and then finally there's the Bill of Rights. 10 amendments to the U.S. Constitution, the first 10, in fact, ratified by the required number of states on December 15th, 1791, 224 years ago, is that right?
That was right.
Proposed by the first Congress as part of 12 amendments, only 10 were approved by the states in 1791.
All right, well, so these three documents are distinct milestones in our nation's history and development. But, and this is important, only 2 of them have force of law, the 2 which make up elements of our national government. If the Declaration of Independence was a document of divorce served on the King of England by the 13 of the colonies in North America, the national Constitution is a wedding contract, a prenuptial agreement, so to speak, making a single nation of the 13 states.
Now, disclaimer here, we are not lawyers nor constitutional scholars, and are but interested citizens of the United States of America. This program does not constitute legal advice, but we do say your rights are like a muscle. You must exercise them to make them stronger.
All righty. We placed a link to a PDF file of the Constitution and all of its amendments on the Freethought Forum TV Facebook page. So you can go to Facebook and search for Freethought Forum Knoxville and click on the link on today's show, and that'll take you to a PDF. This is a document created by the Government Printing Office, and it has a helpful, almost overwhelming, index at the end.
Okay. Sorry? So far, we've talked about talking about the Bill of Rights. Shall we go ahead and get on with them?
All righty. You want to grab Article 1?
I certainly will. So the first one is, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech or of the press, of the right of the people peaceably to assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances.
All righty. So what this is saying is that it is a limitation of the power of Congress. Congress can make no law respecting an establishment of religion. So the establishment of religion is an interesting thing to talk about because, in a way, that's a distant concept to us now here in America, because for over 224 years, there has been no legal establishment of religion. All right, we've apparently got our first caller. You want to push the button and greet them?
I'll let you do that.
I'll do it. You greet them.
Hello, you're on Freethought Forum TV. What should we call you?
Caller
Hello, caller. So, caller, we're discussing the Bill of Rights, and we just got done talking about the first article. Can you give us a comment or a question?
Well, I just thought it was sort of related. Since you didn't prepare for any in the news stuff, I thought I would share something with you that impressed me that sort of relates to what you're talking about presently.
Well, thank you for having paid attention to our show enough to know that. Help us.
Okay. The story came up that I was really impressed with a fellow down in Franklin, South Carolina. He's the mayor of Franklin, South Carolina.
And what did the mayor do?
Well, when he swore into office, you're probably thinking, I'm going to say he was wearing a Pastafarian hat. Well, he wasn't. But when he swore into office, he did not swear on a Bible, but he swore not upon the Bill of Rights, but on the Constitution.
Good for him.
And I just got to give a shout out to that guy. I don't care if he's a Christian or a Zoroastrianist or whatever he is, but any politician that's going to be dedicating his service to the Constitution and the public, I guess gotta respect a fellow like that.
Yeah.
Well, that's great. We wish more understood that. The Constitution itself has elements built into it that they're meant. I think it was the idea is that it's probably meant to let Quakers escape having to violate their religious conscience when taking an oath of office, and that is they aren't required to swear, but rather to affirm. And the word swearing has apparently a deep religious connotation to Quakers that is incompatible with public service if they're expected to say that.
I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought that up. But also, I'd like to say that this mayor, this wasn't the first time that a politician has done that. Of course, I believe, as you were saying. But Thomas Jefferson also did not swear upon a Bible when he took office. He swore upon a book of law, which I think is equally admirable. But, right, you're talking about swearing, when you swear something or affirm or that, which is the other thing I was wanting to ask you about. When I say the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, there's that part that, what's that part?
One nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. But since 1956 or so, they've been adding an extra clause in there. I do it without.
I do as well.
You do it without under God.
Exactly.
Right. Well, that's not what I'm talking about.
Okay.
No, it's the allegiance part.
Pledging allegiance.
Yeah.
To a flag.
Yeah.
To a flag. Well, no, not quite that. Well, yeah, a flag. That's kind of ridiculous. Who's going to pledge allegiance to a piece of cloth? That just sounds absurd. But allegiance, if I'm not mistaken, well, of course I'm not mistaken. I'm never wrong. But allegiance means you're swearing or affirming loyalty to a king, not an elected official, but a king. So swearing allegiance seems like a wrong thing to be doing.
Well, caller, I've often thought that a better pledge would go like this. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the Constitution which it represents, one nation, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That's what I think the pledge really means, even though I don't have time to say it that way and follow the pattern and the cadence of the normal public exhibition.
Yeah, but allegiance seems to go totally against the Constitution, which said that, this is a nation formed by the people, of the people, whereas most all governments I know of prior to that time were formed by the authority of God.
Well, did you catch my nuance that I was saying that the flag represents the Constitution? In other words, the Constitution, the pledge should really be a pledge to follow the rule of law.
Well, as a matter of fact, the military does follow your suggestion. They must have heard about it. Because every time a military person goes into the service of our country, they do not pledge or swear upon the Bible. They may not put their hand on their Bible. But what they do is they swear to uphold and defend the Constitution. Not the president. They do.
Right.
But they to protect, defend and support the Constitution. And as far as I know, for anybody that's ever been in the military, this may be news to them, there's no, statute of limitations on that oath.
Yes, many members of the armed services point out that they're never relieved of that duty.
Ah, yeah. Well, anyway, I'll look for some more in the news for you for next week.
All right.
Thank you, caller.
Thank you.
And happy holidays.
Okay. Wait a minute. You don't tell me what kind of holidays to have. I'll decide what kind of holidays to have.
Don't be happy if you don't want to.
There you go. Talk to you later.
All righty. Well, I wanted to talk about a few more of the clauses in Article 1 before we move on, because it's about Congress shall make no laws establishing a religion. An established religion means one that's government supported, and it was the practice of many, if not maybe all of the states, to fund what had been Anglican Church. Am I getting that right?
Yes.
The Church of England, and then after our revolution became the Episcopal Church. And this article essentially puts an end to that. Now, I'm sure it drug on for a while afterwards. But it also says Congress shall make no law and prohibiting freedom of speech. Now, what that means is that Congress cannot be, or our government cannot be in the business of saying what's acceptable speech and what's not acceptable speech. And the same with the press and the right of the people to assemble and petition the government for grievance. Now, a lot of this seems to be about guaranteeing that citizens have the right to complain of ill governance.
Yes.
And
to get together to do so, even.
Yes. And that this is meant to protect the individual who is, a small, punny little person against what is now the national government. Because remember what I said earlier, the big difference is that the national government now had jurisdiction over citizens. And that's why you didn't have to go to war state against state, but it does represent a highly asymmetric power. And this is one of the things that clearly checks that. All righty, maybe we'll move on, and I will read Article 2,
All right.
which I think is the shortest one.
It certainly is.
A well-regulated militia, being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. All right, well, this kind of clause is apparently, or was apparently in some of the constitutions of the various states. And I guess actually stems even from English law of like the 1600s. But in English law, if you can believe what the Bill of Rights page on Wikipedia says, in English law, the right to keep and bear arms applied only to Protestants.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, amazing. All right, well, it looks like we've got another call. Hello, welcome to Freethought Forum TV. Can we get a name or a nickname, please?
Hi, guys. This is Mike. I'm calling from California.
Hello, Mike from California. I'm making notes. And Mike, can we ask, how did you hear about us that you're calling in?
I've known about you for quite a while. I used to be a member there.
All righty, well, great. Thank you for calling. And today we're talking about the Bill of Rights. Do you have a comment or a question?
Yes, I want to go back to that First Amendment, if you don't mind. I had to silence my phone, so I didn't know you had moved on.
That's okay. We understand.
Right. And I wanted to talk about the fact that it seems as if there's a lot of people who don't really understand that, when they talk about states' rights, that the way they are thinking about states' rights are totally against what the Constitution talks about. I'm sorry, that's more than Article 1. That's actually back in the Constitution in terms of the difference between the Articles of Confederation and the Constitution. And I just wondered if you think that that's a proper way of looking at that.
Well, we have several articles of the Bill of Rights to go through, but the very last article, Article 10, is maybe appropriate to talk about because I think it relates to your question. Article 10, and maybe we can get the slide put up for Article 10, it says, "The powers not delegated to the United States by the Constitution, nor prohibited by it to the states, are reserved to the states, respectively, or to the people." So, as written, what that means is that, let's say the writing laws against murder was not like a power that was given to the national government. It was assumed that the states would regulate, such kinds of laws. And that, in a sense, maybe they would say it was not necessary for the national government to have such laws, and maybe they would say it's not even appropriate. There is, and you were actually asking our opinion on maybe the appropriateness of the division of power. I forget exactly how you asked it. I was assuming Article 10 would come up at the end of our show.
We may not get to it, though.
And
Sorry to move you forward.
But in reality, it gives me the opportunity to say something that I like, and that is, I believe that this is a mistake, and if I could be at the committee that was preparing this amendment, I would have said that, that powers that are not, properly delegated to states are reserved to the people. Unfortunately, the way our national government was set up is that the states were rather unrestricted. They were potentially totalitarian entities, and it is only with the, I think it's the 14th Amendment, that basically forces states to adopt many of the protections and limitations of the national government that we get a more limited power in the states. For instance, and I think even one of the sitting current Supreme Court justices has said that the states had the power to establish state religions. Now that's different than a national religion, but that Maryland could have said, well, we're going to be for Catholics, and Massachusetts could have said we're going to be for Congregationalists, and Georgia could have said we're going to be for Baptists, and that it would be the official state religion. And Article 10 didn't stop that from happening. And I think it is the weakest of the 10 articles in the Bill of Rights, because it would have been a place where the strength of individual rights could have been made more pronounced, but it wasn't.
And it's still one of those places that are argued heavily today. And the other thing that I wanted to mention was the speech, freedom of speech, and the Citizens United misrepresentation of that in terms of making money speech. I think those are two things that have really created a lot of issues that are more difficult than they need be if people were going to be strict constructionists to the Constitution.
All right. Well, unfortunately, there's some kind of Supreme Court decision from, I think it's like the 1880s, that essentially said that corporations have the full rights of individuals, that they are synthetic people. And if we say that the way the rule of law must work is that we have to respect past precedent, and that precedent was allegedly decided at the constitutional level, then the only way to fix it is an amendment. And even though I think a very plausible argument could be made that it was wrong in terms of bad idea, wrong allegedly in terms of policy, in terms of its procedure and execution, that it wasn't, that literally like a court clerk slipped it in and it wasn't really part of what the justices intended. That's an allegation I've heard. Regardless, it's become entrenched, and it should be treated, so to speak, with respect. It's hard to use that word with something I disagree with so much, but we should respect the process enough to say it's wrong and we should amend the Constitution to change it.
To right
Okay.
that wrong.
Yeah, to right
Thank
that
you.
wrong.
Thank you for taking my question. I miss you guys.
All righty. To call again sometime.
I will do it.
Nice
Thank
to
you.
hear from you.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
All righty. So we were talking about, we moved on to Article 2.
We had.
The well-regulated militia. And of course, this is one that is constantly talked about now.
Yes.
But
in the news a lot.
I guess I brought up the fact that in English common law, it was a right only for Protestants.
Right.
And you know, that's not a real, how should we say, admirable heritage for such a concept. But certainly the first clause of this, before the comma, is something on which to comment.
Yes.
A well-regulated militia. And then being necessary to the security of a free state. We're getting low on time, so I'm going to jump ahead and make mention. This is part of a trivia question.
Oh, okay.
This is one of only 2 places in the Constitution where there is an expression about the purpose of the words or the regulation. You know, Article 1, it simply says, Congress shall make no law respecting the establishment of religion. We can infer that that's to protect religious freedom or so on, but that's merely an inference. But here, in Article 2, we have a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. So they've justified what comes in the last clause by those following 2.
Yes.
It happens only one other place in the Constitution. I hope viewers might call in with that.
All right. There's a trivia challenge for you.
We've got another caller. You want to address them?
Hello, caller. Is there a name or nickname we can use to address you? Doug, hello, Doug. Welcome to Freethought Forum TV. Do you have a question or comment?
Well, I just kind of wonder what y'all were up to tonight. You're talking about the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. Isn't it kind of good to live in a country that's got a Bill of Rights and a Constitution?
Indeed it is.
Isn't it great to be free?
Indeed it is. We hope to preserve those freedoms.
Isn't it great to be in a country that, has laws and has, some sense of order and, allows people to do what they want to as long as they don't break the law? Isn't that a good thing?
Indeed it is. That's why we're celebrating today, which is the Bill of Rights Day.
Yeah, I know. You seem to be celebrating, but it seems to be like you'd like to change a few things. But, usually you're attacking Christians and saying that they're attacking you and you're under attack by the Christian community. But, one thing about it, this is Christmas, and I've got hope. I've got hope that when I die, I'll have somewhere to go. And I don't know that you do. I don't know what you expect to happen after life. And I'm not going to argue with you. I mean, I would just think it would be miserable to go through life thinking you're just going to rot in the ground.
Well, Doug, thank you for bringing up that issue. Doug, we would like to address the issues of which you've spoken. Living in a nation with the rule of law is very important because we do not want to live at the whim of a dictator, neither here on earth nor a celestial one either. And with respect to what is going to happen after my body dies is I will cease to exist. The experience will be exactly like what it was like well before I was born. Do you remember what it was like?
Sure that. I mean, you're absolutely positive. I mean, I don't.
Doug, sure. Do you remember what it was like before you were born? Do you remember what it was like in 1700?
I had an experience, and I did believe that there's a God, and I did believe that there's a heaven, and I mean, I'm not challenging you. I'm just thinking that, gosh, it must be miserable going through life just thinking you're going to be dead.
Are you miserable?
I am not miserable.
Me either.
Life is great.
You seem to be very well educated. I don't know nothing much. I don't have a college degree. I'm just an old country boy, and I'm just a man of faith, and I don't care if you want to be an atheist. That's fine with me. I mean, you do what you want to. It's a free country. But I just don't understand you know, what your whole point of having this program is for, other than unless it's to try to turn the world upside down or try to turn it over to your way of thinking.
Well, Doug, what we want to do is make sure that people who have our worldview know that they're not alone. That's a principal reason. And we want to make sure that other people understand there's more than one worldview. We have members.
I think everyone knows that. There have been people who didn't believe in God all through the Bible, if you look back at it. If you look at the rich man and Lazarus and then look at eternity, you know, if you look at all that, you can see that the rich man didn't care too much about old Lazarus. Wasn't thinking too much about where he was going, but where he ended up, he wanted a little water on his tongue. And didn't work out too good for him, but, you know, I mean, it's just, I'm not going to, I didn't call to argue, I just called and wondered what in the world you were doing.
All righty.
I think we've answered that question. We're trying to
Sure enough.
Spread some education. Thanks for calling, Doug.
Thank you.
Happy holidays. All righty. So, you want to do Article 3?
I certainly will. Article 3. No soldier shall, in time of peace, be quartered in any house without the consent of the owner, nor in time of war, but in a manner to be prescribed by law.
Now, when I was young and first reading the Constitution, it was in junior high school, I remember reading this and thinking, my goodness, why do we need something like that?
Yes.
And the answer, of course, is because it used to happen.
It did.
And this represents, how should we say, an article that has been so successful that we almost don't even recognize its need anymore.
Right.
So, well done, Article 3. I think we can move on.
All right. And I remember studying that in the 6th grade. Okay, Article 4. The right of the people to be secure in their persons, houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures shall not be violated, and no warrants shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation, and particularly describing the place to be searched and the persons or things to be seized.
All righty. So, you know, this article is an important part. People will talk about the importance of protecting property rights. And I believe that what had happened during the time leading up to our revolution is that it would either have been the king or maybe local magistrates here in North America acting in his name had written general search warrants where they would just say, just go search for whatever you might need to incriminate people and lock them up.
Take a look in there.
And so, this is very prescriptive, and I must admit, when I read this, it feels to me as if our nation has drifted very far from this. When I'm aware that there are police agencies that will seize vehicles and stuff claiming, well, this was something that was part of committing a crime, and they seize it, and they sell it, and they keep it.
Right.
And that appears to be outside of the process of getting a warrant, as well as not a properly adjudicated trial.
Or even allowing people to feel secure in their sense of ownership.
Well, yes, it becomes, your property becomes their property at their mere whim without this protection. So unlike Article 3, I think Article 4 could
Use a little strengthening?
use a little strengthening, yes. Why don't I do Article 5?
Okay.
No person shall be held to answer for a capital or otherwise infamous crime unless on a presentment or indictment of a grand jury, except in cases arising in the land or naval forces or in the militia, when in actual service, in time of war, or public danger, nor shall any person be subject for the same offense to be twice put in jeopardy of life or limb, nor shall be compelled in any criminal case to be a witness against himself, nor be deprived of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation.
And that last part addresses also what you were discussing in the previous
The due
amendment.
process of law.
Yeah.
Yeah, they go together.
And just compensation.
Now, the just compensation is an appropriate kind of thing that happens when a road needs to be widened. You know,
Yes.
business has increased, and the old two-lane road, one each way, is not big enough to support the growing city. You must widen it, and that means at least one side of the road, if not both sides of the roads, the property owners there, maybe their residences, are going to need to give up their property. But what this says is that the government cannot just say, well, this is so important, we're going to take it from you. They have to be justly compensated. Now, the justly compensated, of course, is going to be plenty of opportunity for what? An argument?
Yes, an argument.
Disagreement?
Interpretation.
Interpretation.
You may think just compensation is much lower than what I think just compensation is. So, yes.
And
indeed.
undoubtedly, most property owners think, oh, I should get a whole lot more for this.
And the government thinks they should get less.
I grew up in experiencing this. The house in which I grew up is gone, and there is now a freeway cloverleaf that runs through where our property was. My parents bought it knowing that the interstate was going to go through. It was U.S. Highway 12 in Minnesota. It was going to become Interstate 94. And the neighbors fought it. It went back and forth, and it was finally when I was something like 19 or 20 years old that they finally did buy our property. They gave us a price that my father might have grumbled with and said that that's not appropriate, but then they gave us nearly as much again for the inconvenience of relocating. And the result is that my father purchased a house that was, although smaller, actually a nicer house. And you know, we were served well by it.
Right.
And people are no longer dying trying to cross U.S. Highway 12. It was very much like Alcoa Highway, which is this fast-moving 2 lanes each direction and a frontage road. And you're going to have to deal with our cameraman. And so people don't have to try and dodge across that. On Alcoa Highway, during rush hour, if you try to go across that highway, it's very much like what our neighborhood was like growing up. And we're better off that our houses are gone and that that's now a true interstate divided highway. So the just compensation of Article 5 worked.
There are other things in Article 5, though. The double jeopardy.
Yes.
Having to go through a trial for the same offense twice.
In other words, you can't be maliciously prosecuted over and over again.
Hoping to get the result you wish.
Yep. If you are exonerated once, that's good enough.
All right. Anything else you want to discuss in Article 5?
I remember as a youngster first reading it, wondering what the infamous crime was all about, and I'm not sure that I ever got a good description what an infamous crime would be all about. Viewers, if you know what infamous crime is all about, give us a call. Let us know.
All right. So shall we go on to Article 6?
Why don't you do it?
I will. In all criminal prosecutions, the accused shall enjoy the right to a speedy and public trial by an impartial jury of the state and district wherein the crime shall have been committed, which district shall have been previously ascertained by law, and to be informed of the nature and cause of the accusation, to be confronted with the witnesses against him, to have compulsory process for obtaining witnesses in his favor, and to have the assistance of counsel for his defense.
There is a lot
There
in
is.
Article 6. It was explained to us when we were learning about the Constitution about the importance of an impartial jury.
Exactly.
And I think the description was like this, that a jury, and elsewhere in the main body of the Constitution, they talk about a jury of your peers. And what your peers mean is someone who is of equal stature to you,
Yes.
your equal. It's not a jury by a professional judge. And the explanation was kind of this, that if you were accused of a crime, and maybe even the facts fit that you were guilty of committing a crime, but if the jurors felt that the nature of writing laws is so imperfect that it didn't cover the situations you were in, that they could vote not to convict. I've heard it alleged that trial lawyers and judges don't like what's called jury nullification. That's what this is all about. But in my junior high school, that's what they talked about, the importance of this phrase, that having a jury determine the result of criminal prosecutions is an escape mechanism for what is recognized to be imperfect human law.
Right.
It is also interesting that the mythical founding first jury trial ever, which happened in ancient Greece, was a trial not about the facts of the case, but about the justice of the law itself. And it did result in jury nullification. Well, there's a little wrinkle in that. All right. So I've talked quite a bit about just the first sentence or two. Did you want to touch on any of the others? There's the thing about being confronted with a witness against him, that I know there's an awkward thing that arises in that, and that is, in the case of prosecution for rape, many rape victims have been reluctant to prosecute the person who is alleged to have wronged them because they don't want to go through the jury process.
Exactly.
And that does represent a very, well, awkward combination of situations here. But yet, if you think about the consequences of saying, well, the person accusing you doesn't have to be there and not answerable for the specifics of the accusation, that can lead to abuse as well.
Yes, there's a balance that is hard to strike sometimes.
As I said about laws, our laws are imperfect human constructions. This is one of them, but I would say, as written, I don't think I can improve on that clause. To be confronted with the witness just seems to be the right thing. I can't think of how I could qualify it to where I know it couldn't be then abused.
All right, should we go on to Article 7?
All righty, we have about 15 minutes left in the program.
Maybe we should take a break.
If you're just watching us, we encourage you to call in. We're talking about the Bill of Rights. Today is its anniversary, its birthday, so to speak. And we have a few more to go. But why don't we do our mid-program break? Have you found it?
No.
I can jump in.
Okay.
In case
Here
you're
we go.
just tuning in, this is Freethought Forum, a program by the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. Freethought Forum is funded jointly by them and by individual contributions.
Shows are live most every Tuesday from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern on Knoxville Community Access Television, Channel 12, or Channel 194, depending on your local cable network. And tell your out-of-town friends to see us streaming online at ctvknox.org.
Today's show is live December 15th, 2015. You can call in on the number on our screen and speak with us. So I guess let's go take our informative commercial break for our
Do you find
sponsors.
stories of talking snakes laughable? Do you prefer the scientific method over supernatural beliefs? Are you concerned about religious leaders and organizations imposing their values and rules on your body, your family, and the rest of our society? Well, take comfort in the fact that you're not alone. The Rationalists of East Tennessee meets weekly for fellowship and provides a forum for people who support skeptical thinking and rational discussion of these and other issues. To find out more information or to find out about our next meeting, visit us on the web at www.rationalist.org. If you live in or around the Knoxville area and are questioning your religious beliefs or simply believe in one less God than everyone else, well, you're not alone. The Atheist Society of Knoxville is a fun and friendly group of people just like you that meets twice a week at a bar or restaurant. We meet every Tuesday night following the show at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria for happy hour. You'll find our group either inside or on the patio. Look for Richard Dawkins' silver-jacketed book, The God Delusion, standing upright on the table. On Fridays, we meet at Agave Azul or the Beard and Beer Market. But if you plan to preach, proselytize, provoke, or punch, please don't. We all question what we believe at one point in our lives. If this is the time for you, come join us for food, drink, conversation, and fun.
The Atheist Society of Knoxville, or ASK, meets once or twice a week, and we have evening meetups for fun, food, drink, and conversations. ASK's purpose is to supply a venue for community, camaraderie, and outreach to atheists, agnostics, freethinkers, and other like-minded persons in the East Tennessee area. Our Tuesday meeting is going on right now at Barley's Tap Room and Pizzeria in the Knoxville Old City. There is some talk about going to see the new Star Wars movie once it comes out, perhaps on December 25th.
Ooh. The second Sunday of most months is the Rationalists of East Tennessee Skeptics Book Club. The title of the January book is Fields of Blood, Religion and the History of Violence. It's by Karen Armstrong. That will be Sunday, January 10th at 2 p.m. The public is invited to participate. You need not have read the book to attend, but of course it helps. Visit rationalists.org to find the rest of the calendar of books and join us at the new location, Books A Million, 8513 Kingston Pike, Knoxville, Tennessee. All righty, so I forget, which article did we leave off with?
I think we are on to number 7 now.
Number 7.
Yes.
Is it my turn to read or yours?
Whichever.
I'll grab it.
Okay.
In suits at common law, where the value of controversy shall exceed $20, the right of trial by jury shall be preserved, and no fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise re-examined in any court of law than in accordance with the rules of the common law. So, this is one that you don't hear a whole lot about. I know, once again, when I was in junior high school and we were learning about the Constitution, the fact that $20 was hard-coded into it, and that $20, even in what must have been about 1972, had obviously a very different value than it did in 1791, kind of was pointed up as sort of a defect, that there was no inflation adjustment.
Right.
And that, if when the Constitution was adopted, $1 a day would have been a typical wage, that would have been, a large fraction of a month's wage.
Yes, it would.
Nowadays, plenty of people earn that in less than an hour's worth of work. It does seem like this sort of thing, that hard-coding an amount was ill-advised, but our monetary system actually works fundamentally differently now than it did then. They used currency that was fixed to precious metals.
Yes, yes.
And
gold standard. Or the coins were actual silver.
I think there's an interesting thing. I think early on, our nation's currency was sort of pegged to the Spanish currency. It was actually a thing, I think, of the 1880s and 90s as to whether or not to adopt a gold or silver standard of our own.
Okay.
That for quite a while, in a sense, we rode along on the Spanish currency.
Wouldn't want to do that now.
Well, our currency system works fundamentally different now. There is what amounts to inflation built into it, and that is, it's argued by economists that actually creates a stimulus that creates greater growth in GDP than if you had a fixed monetary supply. That the expectation that the money you have today will be worth less by the time you retire is a motivation to invest it well in a way that benefits us all by creating goods and services. That's the argument that I was given in high school.
That's a far cry than this trial by jury shall be preserved, and also that these can't be tried in a different court.
Yeah, I guess there's a little bit about that seems to be a little bit like double indemnity, but this is suits at common law, so I think this is not criminal things. This is disputes between you and I. If I'm saying you've stolen my yellow highlighter and I want it back,
And that
we
is
go to
my
get it
yellow
adjudicated. Yeah. Is it worth $20?
I don't think
Not
so.
even now. I guess we won't be eligible for a trial by jury to resolve that one.
All right.
You want to do another
8?
article?
Sure. Article 8. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted.
All righty.
So it's interesting here, the excessive bail is not, there's no...
No dollar amount put
right,
on that.
It's not specified.
Yeah.
That would have been interesting had it been specified. Nor the excessive fines, they have not been specified. Furthermore, the cruel and unusual punishments have not been specified.
Yep. It was explained to me in junior high school about the nature of some of the practices of British justice involving, well, just ghastly things that we can't even talk about on the air that they would do to people. And the people, the members of the first Congress, I think, felt that we needed to abide by a higher, more decent standard of behavior. And we've seen this this trend throughout our nation's history. And in fact, I think it would have been in about 1972, the Supreme Court ruled that the methods by which capital punishment was being conducted in the nation had become so arbitrary, capricious, that they ruled all capital punishment against the law. And people who were on death row, like Charles Manson, his sentence was commuted automatically then to life. And it was only with careful rewriting of the law that the Supreme Court allowed capital punishment to resume, but with much stricter guidelines on how juries are instructed so that it becomes not an unusual punishment to where a jury can kind of, so to speak, pick on an individual.
Right.
All righty.
Okay.
We have about 5 minutes left. We have time for another call if you're viewing out there. You want to get Article 9.
Sure. The enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people.
All right, and within my lifetime, I know of a very important decision that rests on Article 9. Can you read my mind and know which one I'm thinking of?
You know, I don't believe in supernatural powers. I don't have ESP.
Well, it's Roe versus Wade.
I thought it might be.
An important part of the Roe versus Wade decision was the assertion that it's a violation of a woman's privacy for the legislature to inject their wishes about reproductive choices. It's none of the business of the legislature, and how we do reproduction is protected by privacy. Now, I've heard plenty of people who claim to be these strong, original, interpretive conservatives say that there is no right of privacy in the Constitution. And man, oh man, do I always want to say, you haven't read Article 9 lately, haven't you? You just did what Madison and others said you should not. I mentioned Madison, and it's partially James Madison is a principal author, but not sole author of these the Bill of Rights. And he was initially opposed to it because he was a little afraid that by enumerating some, the argument would be made that, oh, well, there is no right to privacy.
Or that, anything that we can imagine that wasn't enumerated isn't a right.
Yeah. And so this article was meant to cover that. I don't know if it is one he specifically wrote or not, nor have I ever learned if he chose this exact sentence or not. We're coming down on 3 minutes.
Okay.
And here on page 7, we got another trivia question. You want to read the trivia question?
All right. There are only 2 places in the Constitution where the intent of the Constitution is expressed. Now, one is in the Second Amendment, which we spoke about, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state. The right of the people to keep and bear arms should not be infringed. So, there.
All right.
And would you like to share the second place?
Okay, the second is in Article 1, Section 8, and it empowers Congress to grant patents and copyrights. It reads, to promote the progress of science and useful arts by securing for limited times to authors and inventors the exclusive right of their respective writings and discoveries. So, the promotion of progress of science and useful arts. It is amazing that our Constitution in no way is meant to promote religion, but our Constitution is meant to promote progress in science and useful arts.
I
yes.
like it.
So it's one of the trivia questions about the Constitution that I like. We have time here for one more. It starts at the top. I'll read the question.
Well, we haven't done Article 10.
Article 10.
Yeah.
We did when Mike called.
Oh, that's right, we did.
All right, we got half a minute left.
Okay.
Trivia number 2. Of the first 12 proposed amendments that came out of the first Congress, 10 were adopted in 1791. One more has since been adopted and become part of our Constitution. It happened in 1992. It is the most recent Constitution amendment added. It is 27, and it reads, no law varying the compensation for the services of the senators and representatives shall take effect until an election of representatives shall have intervened. And the explanation I heard is that it was actually meant, when written, to prevent Congress from saying, we're going to skip our salary and starving out the less well-to-do members.
I see.
All righty.
All right.
We've got a minute left. It's time to do our closing.
Okay. It is time to start wrapping things up. Get out your pen and paper. This has been Freethought Forum, a program of the Atheist Society of Knoxville and the Rationalists of East Tennessee. I'm Alita.
And I'm Faithless Forrest. Please send us feedback. You can leave voicemail at 865-272-9060 or freethoughtforum@yahoo.com.
You can see this show on Tuesdays from 5 to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on this Knoxville station and at 2200 Greenwich Mean Time at ctvknox.org.
The opinions expressed on this show are of the hosts and if we had any guests and our callers, and not any official opinion of ASK or RET. We would like to thank Sam for technical support, Carl for call screening, the staff at CTV Knox, and all our callers.
And we want you to know that you are not
alone.
alone.